All right, let's go. Day number 20. So basically 4 days before Christmas, almost the end of the year. And let's continue with this daily vlog. So the main subject for today's video will be why you are basically never losing money when you're spending on advertising. You're just collecting data and you're learning. So let's look at it like this. As we might know, whenever you fail, you don't actually do any harm, let's say, as much as you actually learn from that, let's say, mistake or experience. And let's look at a very simple example. So, for example, when you're a kid and you're walking like a baby, that's when you will fail, right? Like all of us at one point failed trying to crawl and make our first few steps. So that's actually really normal. And that applies later on in life as well. Like when we learn something at school, we take some bad grades, we learn not what to do. Maybe we improve. It depends on us if we actually want to improve, right? Or if we even go through that experience again, right? Because in most cases, you get better by making mistakes in the same domain, right? Like if you make mistakes cooking and then you never cook again, then you learned something, right, by failing, but then you can't improve. Like you'll never actually show anyone, not even yourself, that you're improving. So let's come back to the topic of advertising, because it is basically more or less running the world, right? Like who are the biggest companies in the world right now? It's Nvidia for now, actually, when I'm filming this, if I'm not mistaken. But then it's Microsoft, it's Apple, it's Meta, it's Google, and all of them advertise their products. Microsoft maybe less, to be honest, because at this point they have so much market share, but that doesn't mean that you don't advertise anymore, right? Look at Coke. Like they're still advertising. They're still one of the biggest spenders in general because they want you to see their ads again and again. And repetition is actually, let's say, a psychological trigger for us to actually trust someone. The more we see someone, the more likely we are to trust them because we see they are human, we see their flaws, just like you are seeing in my videos that sometimes I overuse the word right, and that's because I feel like I'm talking with myself, so I'm just trying to ask that. So I believe that you have my attention, right? As you can see. And you will see this maybe unconsciously or consciously made by a lot of public speakers. But ideally, you don't really use it, especially if you're more articulate. Not in my case. I'm not the most articulate in the world. I'm not Jordan Peterson, but each with their own strengths, right? So coming back to the main subject, because actually I am planning in January to have a similar series, a series that's daily and where I'm showing that I'm spending money on ads on Meta, most likely. I'll still have to plan, but most likely on Meta. And the main reason is to get attention from the right people, meaning business owners, people who have an e-commerce brand, and actually maybe even other people who might need Facebook ads as a way to acquire new customers, right? And that's because that's one of the skills that I have. Also looking at data and so on, right? So each with their own strengths. And coming back to paid ads, because one of the strengths with paid ads nowadays is that the data is more granular, meaning that you do get insights. And that's what's helping you get better because you are able to improve based on the data that you collect. It's just like trying to make sales. You have 10 conversations, you learn some patterns from people, right? You have 100 conversations, you have more patterns. You have 1,000 conversations, you have way too many patterns, and you should be probably pretty good at selling by that point, right? So it's also a volume game, and it's the same with ads. The more you spend, the more data you'll have, the more numbers on a spreadsheet, the more numbers about. Let me take this off because actually someone is calling me right now. Usually I have background music, but right now someone was calling me, and no time to actually respond. And probably it's just someone from either India, London, or US, because I probably signed up for some kind of webinar and now they're cold calling me for some kind of offer. And yeah, that's not the best way to reach out to me. But advertising, that's slightly different, right? It's not cold calling, it's more so something that you have to see, right? Or watch, depending on where you see it, because for example on YouTube you have to watch maybe around 3 seconds of that ad. On Meta you're basically just scrolling but still seeing that, right? So it's awareness. And as I said before, repetition is really important due to multiple reasons, but you also get better because you get data from what works and what doesn't. So if an ad doesn't work, you see why it doesn't work. It could be multiple factors. It could be the click-through rate, so not enough people click on it. It could be the CPM, so your audience is too expensive. It could be the CPC, so the cost per click is way too high. It doesn't make sense to spend that much, right? So there are all these components that matter, and the only way to get data is by actually spending on ads and finding out. It's just like with anything, it's a volume game. Of course, you do need quality, but in most cases you won't get quality right out of the gate, and that's because you don't have the experience, you don't have the data. And we are not born, right, with experience. We are not born with data. We are not born with traumas, right? So it's clear that we actually need to go through that character development, let's say, in life. But for other things, it's more so about just getting more data points. So it's all about data points. Like even if when you're talking with someone, you see their body movement, you see if they like what you're saying or not, right? Sometimes you might be picking up on those things, sometimes you might not. Let me see if I can put back my headphones here, just because it's a little bit noisy and I'd rather listen to this background music than to my own voice. But let's come back. So this is more so a reminder that you never really fail and you always need to try new things out. And that's the only way to make progress. Like, yeah, you can go in terms of income, you can go right from zero, like all of us, to $500, to 1K, 2K, 3K, 5K, 10K, 50K, 100K. I mean, there are so many examples, right? But there are different things that you need to do at different stages. And this is where paid ads come in, because they offer you the opportunity to learn faster by actually paying. And think of it, in most cases you get further by actually paying. You pay with your time or you pay with your money. Either way, both are expensive. So you just have to pick what you prefer. Do you prefer to waste, let's say, your time, or do you prefer to waste your money? Personally, I make like a mix of both, meaning that I do like to actually spend money when it accelerates what I'm doing, just because I know that time is limited. But also I'm using all the time that I have, because otherwise I'm just wasting it if I'm not using it on the things that I think are the most important. And usually the most important are the things which you believe in, the things that you feel like they are growing you. And we don't need to get philosophical here, but of course you can focus on superficial things, but at the same time there are also more important things, such as, let's say, having real friends, right? I mean, I don't think I've seen any happy person in this world who doesn't have a support group of people who are, let's say, a good influence, because you can even have a bad influence, right? Like if you're an entrepreneur and you are sitting around people who watch TV all day, then you won't really make it, right? Same if you're even doing something that you enjoy. Let's say maybe you enjoy clubbing for a while, right? But over time, you'll see that it's not like there's anyone who's like 50 or 60 years old who's actually doing that, right? So it's like, yeah, you might do it for a while and you might like it, but eventually that's not something that you would prefer to do long term. And that's why the hardest things are usually the ones that require time, energy, and it's the same with ads. They just help you accelerate what you're doing. Like they are not a one-hit wonder, meaning that you can't run an ad and sell anything or sell your services or become famous or anything like that. But at the same time, they do save you some time. And it's hard in some cases to actually quantify because time is so vague, right? Meaning that you don't really know when you're wasting it unnecessarily. But that is why it's important to make some projections, some forecasts. Now we're getting very nitty gritty with the numbers, but that's the reality. You do need to do more than just watch a video like this and then, yeah, hope that you get all the learnings. But that's about it for this video, for this day. I'm mainly looking at everything that you're doing, every failure, every dollar spent, let's say, as learnings, because that's what it really is, especially if you go back and look at what it taught you. So with that, we'll end around 12 minutes as usual, and we'll see each other tomorrow.